Yitzchak. And this is, again, this theme of there's more going out in here. There's more searching around. And briefly, it's also the story about how Yaakov, Yitzchak's son, cheated Esau out of his birthright. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. But what I want to...
I'm sorry, your 10 minutes is now up.
Well, then leave. At the end of the parsha, really, when Yitzchak gives the bracha to Yaakov, who he thinks is Esau, he gives him the same thing that Abraham told Eliezer. He says to go out to his uncle Laban's, and again, he shouldn't take a wife from the Canaanites. And again, this is this whole idea of going out from where you are to find a soulmate. Okay? And that theme seems to be recurrent there. And that seems to be a big thing here. The next parsha we come to is Vayetze, which is Yaakov went out. And where did he go? He went somewhere, and he was on his way to Laban's, and he stopped somewhere. And he had a dream about the ladder and the angels. And that dream is very rich in symbolism, and that's really not what I want to talk about. We all hear lots of stories about that. But the one I like, and I think someone was mentioning about it before, the symbolism for me there is that the Jews have their feet firmly on the ground and their heads in Bashamayim in the heaven. And as my mother likes to say, maybe we're Luftmenches a little bit. And now I'm going to interject a little story here about the idea of what a Luftmensch is.
The American expression is spaced out.
I told you last week a Luftmensch is a mensch that flies an airplane.
So when Mom first told me, she says, like Sandy and Michelle, they're going to get married. And when Michelle's father asks, well, what does this guy do? What does he do in Israel? And Ma says, well, what Michelle would say is, where did Dory go?
That's not what Michelle
She would say, oh, well, he lives in Israel, he was on kibbutz, he works here, he's kind of a Luftmensch. And I didn't think much about that conversation. Then a couple of days later, I was thinking about something. I saw some beautiful pictures of people on a kibbutz in Israel. And I called her up the next day. I said, Mom, I says, Shelley's not a Luftmensch. What Shelley is doing is he's our surrogate. He's living in Eretz Israel, where all Jews should be, living the good life there, and doing what we should be doing as Jews. So really, he's not a Luftmensch. And when I talked to Michelle for the first time on the phone and told her that story, she says, oh good, you should come here and tell my mother that.
Shelley's doing the mitzvah for all of us.
But really what I want to talk about is something really special about that story about Yaakov and his dream. And that is, there's a real deeper meaning there. And the deeper meaning has to come from the Hebrew word hamakom, the place. Now, in that first sentence where it says where Yaakov came, it says 3 different times it says the place. It says Yaakov lighted upon the place, he took the stones of the place, and he lay down in that place. And I mean, there's tons of midrash about all that, what the place is, about this Mount Moriah, which is the place where the Akedah, which was the binding of Isaac, took place, which we read on second day of Rosh Hashanah. And other people said it was where the Beit HaMikdash was, and this and that. But this was my thought about Hamakom. To me, the place, Hamakom, was this house. And really, that the ladder that Jacob climbed symbolized what we all do from this house, from this place. This is our root. This is our anchor. This is our firm ground from which we climb the ladder, starting at the bottom rung to new places.
His mother called the Grand Central Station.
To new heights,
to new
places, to a new page, so that we can find a new hamakom, a new place. And I think that's real important to think about, and that seems to be a real tender thing for me here when thinking about that parsha and thinking about all of us being together again. And thinking about how really that this is Hamakom, this is the place where we all started out from. And Shelley went to Israel, and I went to Alaska and Washington and Minnesota and all those places, and Michelle's in Indianapolis, and Fred's in DC, and now pretty soon he's going to be going to Houston. It's sort of like the sentence in the Parsha says, like the song, where the song comes from, Ufaratza. You should spread out, Yoma, Bakema, Tzofana, and Negba. West, east, north, and south. And I really thought a lot about that, and I thought that that was some good Torah to think about. But like Yaakov, we all come back from our dreams, from our journeys of self-searching to this place. And we come back, and like what Yaakov said, when he woke up, he said, how full of awe is this place? This is the gate of heaven. And to be together again in this place and to share our visions, our dreams, and to prepare for more dreams and more journeys. And also to be with each other and to touch each other in our spirits as Hashem promised in Yaakov in that dream that he would do with Yaakov. And then finally, Yaakov leaves that place to go to Lavan. And we all know this story. This is the story about how Yaakov met Rachel, and how he fell in love with her, and how he wanted her as his wife, and how Lavan, who personifies evil in many, many ways, cheated him. First, Yaakov had to work for 7 years, and then he said, no, you can't have Rachel. I'm going to give you Leah, the older sister. And you have to work another 7 years for her. And so finally he worked another 7 years and he got Rachel, and then he had to work another 6 years for the flock. 20 years total. And I guess when I was thinking about that parsha, when I was thinking about that business, I kept thinking about how Shelley kept going back to Israel. First to Baal Yahu, and back and forth and back. I lost count. It was like Yaakov working for 20 years. He paid his dues. And I think Shelley, like everyone who goes with these journeys, was struggling with all the Lavans of the world who would cheat us out of what we love. And I think also perhaps he was struggling, as we all do, with the Lavans inside of ourselves, the parts inside of ourselves that isn't always honest with ourselves, and how hard it is to listen to our own inner voice, our own neshama. And then finally Shelley returned for the last time, and he leaves the kibbutz and goes to Yerushalayim and meets Michelle, who had also journeyed, who had gone out from her country, from her relatives, from the house of her father, to Eretz Yisrael, to the land, and who I'm sure has had many journeys of her own, and who has confronted many Lavans. And then she met Shelley, like Rivka met Isaac. And finally, I come to the parsha this week, Vayishlach, Yaakov. Yaakov sent a messenger. And this is the story about how finally Yaakov left Lavan, and he returned again, back to the place where he was born. And God told him to do that. And what does he do? He sent out messengers to Esau, his brother. And I said I was going to talk about this again. And this is where it comes in again. And what he wanted to do with these messengers, and what he wanted to do was restore their kinship. And in a way, that's what we're doing here. To meet again, to renew and revitalize, and regain the distance and time between us all. In a way, also, we do tshuva. Because if you think about the idea of tshuva, you know that it has two meanings. It has both the meaning of repentance, and it also means to return. And lots of times when we think about the idea of tshuva on Yom Kippur, we do tshuva because we're trying to return an aberrant soul to the path of Gemilos Chasadim, acts of loving kindness. So what I want to do then is backtrack a little to the story I was talking about with Yaakov and Esau, the original conflict they had that precipitated him sending out the messengers and having this meeting with them. And back when we read that parsha at Shul, at our little weekly Torah study, I was troubled. I was very troubled. And at our Sikha, our study group, I said, what's going on here? I said, there's a lot on my mind lately about brothers. I'm going to go to Chicago and see my brothers who I haven't seen, one for 5 years, one for a couple of years. And I'm reading all these parshas, and there's all these role models, Abraham and Sarah, Rivka and Yitzchak, all this. And what's this Mishigas with all these brothers? There's a source for them all. First Cain kills Abel, then all this stuff with Ishmael and Yitzchak, and the separation there. And then finally now we read about Yaakov and Esau, about how he cheated him, and all this stuff there. And I guess I was thinking about the three Wolgel boys being back together again, and I was thinking, so where's the role models? Do I have to wait for Moshe Rabbeinu for a good Jewish man? And people at the Sikha said, well, the first answer was, well, you'll have to wait like the rest of us. And the other thing that people said were that lots of times role models in the Torah are there to know what not to do, not what to do. But I think the strongest thing to come out of that study group was the idea that the Torah is not literal. The message is that conflict always brings redemption. And I thought a lot about that, and I think that's true. And I think that's true about my brothers and I, and about people in general. We always have to have conflict before there's redemption. And when we think about what happened when, in this Parsha of Vayishlach, about when the brothers Yaakov and Esau got together again, Yaakov was very scared. He was afraid. It says he was afraid. And he thought that there was going to be a war again with his brother. And he had this dream about wrestling with angels. Now, I'm not going to reflect on the symbolism of Yaakov wrestling with angels and the three Wolgel boys. That's, I think that's obvious. So,
We're all angels.
We're all angels. We did enough wrestling anyway.